Once upon a time, in a quaint little village lived a farmer named Elric. He was known far and wide for his wisdom, humility, and a stoic disposition that made him the confidant of many in times of trouble. The most cherished member of his family, besides his loving wife and children, was his horse, a robust creature that aided him in his farming tasks. One fateful evening, a violent storm rolled through the village, leaving a path of destruction in its wake. The next morning, Elric discovered that the wooden fence around his pasture had been knocked down and his prized horse had vanished. "My deepest sympathies, Elric," said his neighbor, Frederick. "How will you manage without your horse?" "We'll see," Elric replied with a thoughtful expression, repairing the fence. A week later, Elric's horse had returned, and it had brought along another horse, a wild, energetic mare. The villagers gathered around Elric, congratulating him on his good fortune. "You're twice as rich now. What a blessing!" exclaimed Frederick, unable to contain his excitement. "We'll see," said Elric calmly, tying up the new horse next to his own. In the following days, Elric's son, Owen, took it upon himself to tame the wild mare. Eager but inexperienced, he climbed onto the horse's back, hoping to ride it around the pasture. However, the wild horse was not so easily tamed. It reared and bucked, throwing Owen off its back. He tumbled to the ground, wincing in pain as he clutched his leg, which was now clearly broken. "Ah, this is terrible." A broken leg could keep Owen laid up for months. Frederick cried, watching as Elric's family helped the young man into their home. "We'll see," Elric said softly, patting his son's shoulder as they walked inside to set the broken limb. Weeks turned into a couple of months, and Owen's leg healed slowly but surely. The village was calm, almost idyllic, until a harbinger of turmoil arrived. The king's army sent messengers to every corner of the realm. War had broken out in a neighboring kingdom. Owen's sons were of age, as were many others in the village. The air became thick with worry and sorrow, as families prepared to send their sons off to a war from which they might never return. Frederick came over to Elric's house, his face pale with concern. "They're taking our boys. Elric, what can we do?" Elric looked at his son Owen, who was still walking with a limp, relying on a crutch for support. "We'll see," said Elric, gazing into the distance. As the king's soldiers arrived to conscript the young men, they examined Owen and shook their heads. "He's unfit for battle," they concluded, moving on to the next household. Frederick's sons, healthy and strong, had no choice but to go. The village was left in a state of anxious waiting. Weeks passed, then months. Finally, a messenger arrived bearing news. The war was over, but the toll was heavy. Many young men from the village had perished or were grievously wounded. Frederick's household was not spared. One of his sons had been killed in battle, and the other returned with injuries that would plague him for the rest of his life. As Frederick wept for his loss, he thought of Elric and went to see him. "You were right, Elric. We never really know, do we? What appears to be misfortune may indeed be a blessing in disguise," Frederick said, tears welling in his eyes. Elric put a comforting arm around his friend. "It's the ebb and flow of life, my friend. Every event is a thread in the intricate tapestry of existence. We might not see the whole picture now, but eventually it comes into focus." Frederick nodded, taking some solace in his wise friend's words. As for Elric, he looked at his son, who had fully recovered by now, and his two horses grazing peacefully in the pasture. His face still didn't reveal much, but those who knew him well could see a glimmer of contentment in his eyes. Owen, sitting beside his father, finally broke his silence. "Father, you always say we'll see, no matter what happens. Do you really believe that every event has a reason?" Elric smiled, a rare but warm expression on his face. "I believe that our understanding is limited, my son. We may perceive things as good or bad based on our immediate circumstances, but the universe operates on principles far grander than our individual experiences." And so, life in the village moved on. But people, especially Frederick and Owen, carried with them the wisdom that whatever happens, happens for a reason, even if that reason isn't immediately clear. "We'll see" became a phrase that held new meaning for everyone, serving as a humble reminder of the ever-unfolding tapestry of life, where each event, good or bad, had its place and purpose.